And welcome back, everyone, to Meta HSE for our second game here, the best of three semi-finals for the Victorian League of Legends tournament. I am Midnight, still joined by Mendrix, as De La Salle and Melbourne High School will be butting heads for the second time today. We already saw our first game, Mendrix, and Melbourne High School had a few struggling points, it's fair to say. Yep. Coming into game number two, I think it's important to note that both schools have powered up equally. Their in-game icons are all the same. So they have now equally powered up, and we're diving headfirst into game number two.
Not only have they powered up, they're synced. They're ready to roll, all on the same page. And that's exactly what we want to have happen when we come into these maps. I think there was probably going to also be a little bit of a change in the bans that we saw beforehand. I would like to see them, perhaps change up a little bit. Maybe get rid of the Cassidy, because that was definitely a clear answer for Zenid going into Demon Slayer. And I think that Cassidy might be prepared in multiple ways, because it is quite flexible into a number of assassins. Because if you do choose to go for Control Mage, you can just choose to go full damage directly afterwards.
Yeah. Well, dive through. We'll see how it goes.
Same bands though.
Yeah.
Vayne again. Gallia, the first band as well for De La Salle. Of course, the other thing here that's going to be a bit different is that Melbourne High has the first pick, so they can look for a big priority pick on the back of it. But of course, because it is, again, the idea of these aren't the highest levels of elos, those priority picks don't have the same value that they would in the fully competitive game.
Yeah. But let's see. So Swain once again being lost for Dr. Dugong. Not a surprise there. As looking at the final ban here from the side of Melbourne High School. Now, do they look at the Cassidy? Because they got themselves a favorable matchup, and the Cassidy was a serious problem last game. Paired it up with 200 years on the Samira getting that earlier pentakill. Could they look at either of them as a ban?
I feel like it would possibly be, purely because, again, I feel like Zenid's used this as a preparation, but this time around, they've gotten rid of the Samira, and I do understand why they would actually get rid of it, because 200 years was a damn monster on it, and most of those team fights were won off the back of 200 years using excellent play on that Samira. So I feel by getting rid of that, that's actually a big key point removed away for De La Salle, and they now need to really change up their composition going forward. And you can see De La Salle are thinking this last band through towards the very end as well.
Ooh, Camille gonna get taken out once again. Kara now saying, well, do I just grab me a tank again? I don't think it's a bad idea. Will be the Scion this time. A little bit easier engage coming through in the top lane. And I question, do you just grab Rage Rider's Alistar again? I think you did brilliantly last game. I don't see why you wouldn't.
Well, I think it changes up now that they've gotten rid of the Samira. I feel now they need to really actually change the way they're going to go about it, unless they're going to have another close-range self-sustaining ADC like the Vayne, but the Vayne's also been removed. So things, I reckon, really change for De La Salle here, and I reckon now they're probably going to do a bit more priority on different picks and champions around, and Volibear looks like that's going to be the case here. Probably in the jungle. To be honest, I'm not sure. It could be also that Lee Sin in the jungle, but Lee Sin also has seen both lane play as well recently. So a lot of different things could come out of it. But really, these are two flex picks. They could be going anywhere. So De La Salle not giving anything away if these are going to be the two lock-ins.
Yeah, instead...
that gives everything away, though, if he picks
that. Yeah, that gives it away a little bit there. Viego going to be handing into the hands of Yo. And it looks like they're actually just picking for themselves coming in, because Volibear is, decent matchup into the Scion if you play it well. And I'm not exactly concerned about Daiki's mechanical skill coming into this.
As well, the Nocturne has been seeing a lot of play recently. Definitely more popular, was a lot more popular in lane, purely because of the sustain that the passive brought. That's been recently nerfed down. But it's still, with the ability of that stride breaker, still pretty strong once he gets going. So Nocturne, I feel, still going to have a very comfortable time in the jungle specifically, not so much in lane anymore. And Demon Slayer still sticking to that Zed, tried, tested, and true. Wouldn't be surprised if we see Cassidy again, but this time around, with the counter pick, could obviously go for a completely different champion. Maybe something that's got a little bit more sticking power on the Zed, or the ability to survive it. And
there it is.
Vladimir definitely has the ability to do that.
I was going to say, yes, you could go for the Cassidy again, Mendrix, but that feels so risky. It's such a bad matchup for you. Surely it would actually
looked like a bad matchup last game.
Okay. Still got solo kill, despite the very clear...
That's just respect. Zenid had played it wrong. He just should have just given Demon Slayer that bit more respect.
I mean, yeah, but I do quite like it, because now it's a lot more power early coming into this. And I think that is, while the Cassidy didn't get great in the late game, if you give 200 years something like a Jinx, a Twitch, a Tristana, something along those lines, you've got your late game covered. Vladimir late game monster, very much like the Kassadin. But unlike the Kassadin, Vladimir actually has some very viable mid to even early game, priority. So I do quite like to see it. Plus, it means you can't be death marked, because anytime Zed presses R on you, you just blob down into a pool of gelatin.
All right, well, the other thing we need to take into account is, of course, the strategy from Melbourne High. And one of the good things that Vladimir does have is, like, yes, he's sustainable. Yes, he can, probably have a bit of mid-game power once he hits level 6. But what he really lacks is that wave clear early, because he puts himself at risk of being dove by the Zed if he decides to use his E on a relatively short cooldown all the time, because he's going to be taking a lot of his own damage in the process of using that ability. So that does mean that Zed then does have the ability to roam, just shove out the lane, not really look to kill Vladimir. I can just kill everyone else on your team. Pair that with the fact that, of course, Phoenixy is going to have a relatively good danking jungler with the ability, well, once he gets his own level 6 ability up and running, there's some pretty powerful potential for some early roams, and we know Melbourne High has the ability to use that skirmishing potential pretty damn well against DLSL. They had some pretty good success early before DLSL were able to steal the show.
Yeah, and I really want to see them using that proactivity, but I'm getting worried. Will they be allowed to? Leona locked in here for Rage. We saw the devastation they pulled out on the Alistar. I'm not surprised the Leona's in their wheelhouse. And the change I think you need to make here is Dugong, I think, needs to play a bit of a bruisier champion. The Karma looked okay, but I would love to see a Nautilus, not a Tom Kenshin much anymore, but something beefier to hold down that front line here. I don't want to see a utility enchanter support here. I just don't think it's going to provide anything. But Dugong's champion pool is quite clearly being squeezed, because I've seen them play the Nico when they haven't had access to the Swain. So I just don't think that those kind of bruisery supports, which I think would be brilliant here, are in their wheelhouse.
I think one of the big things to take into account is there is going up against Leona, and Leona actually excels against those bruisier types. Don't get me wrong, Leona can definitely have a good time against the soft types as well, purely because once, with the fact that Leona is amazing CC, jumps on, is able to lock someone down, and then obviously enhance the lane opponent in the process of that. They can definitely make it work. But the other issue that's a problem there, if that Zenith play doesn't land against these two ranged champions, they can definitely feel the pinch that comes across from those ranged champions attacking when they do realize key cooldowns are down. So I still don't mind the option for the Nico here. It just means that execution needs to be on point for Melbourne High down in that bot lane. And to be honest, we can see some pretty good execution from Melbourne High as well. They did have the ability to take out Rage Rider early beforehand, so they do understand how to play in those scenarios. They just need to be able to keep up that aggression without giving it too much away with the ganks. And I think a lot's also going to come down to Phoenixy being a little bit more creative with that pathing, because last time, even though we had a Kane, it was pretty straightforward. It was pretty, I'm just going to come into lane now and try to force a gank instead of going the long way around, instead of checking for all points of vision otherwise, because every single time DLSL had an idea when that Kane was going to come into it.
Yeah, and part of that comes through just the style of composition that came through last game from Melbourne High School, which was very lacking in crowd control. They have maybe 3 bits of crowd control coming in, not including the Kane transformation, because you had Ornn, you had some CC coming in from the Karma, but that doesn't really count. And I see the same issue in this composition, where all your crowd control is really stacked onto Kara here. Yes, Dugong brings some CC to the table with the Tangled Barb of the Nico, but I don't think that's enough to stop De La Salle. And I really worry that with all the CC De La Salle brings, they're bringing Leona, the queen of crowd control. They're bringing Viego. They're bringing in the Volley Bear, who's a pain in the ass when it comes to CC as well. I worry that they're not going to have enough to stop the Tristana from bunny hopping, to stop the Vladimir from diving into their backline, and even stop the Viego and lock him down. So, I don't know, man. I'm just really worried that Melbourne High School, they've got a lot of damage and a lot of skirmish, but I don't see what they can do to hold someone in place to get the damage down.
I think a lot of it also comes down to which team pulls the trigger first, which one has positioning. Warding is going to be absolutely important, key for the winning this battle, because if you are the team out of position, you allow the other person to pull that trigger first, that's where you lose out. Volibear, Viego, Vladimir, Tristana, Leona, these are all champions that excel that engaging, not disengaging. Same goes for Melbourne High. Sion, Nocturne, Zed, Jinx, Nico. Again, fantastic champions at disengaging. At engaging, not disengaging. The only person that probably has a decent disengage in this game, I'm looking specifically at Nico. Nico has the ability to obviously throw out that barbed wire, as mentioned before, also can use the ultimate as a way of disengaging team fights when he does decide to push that out beforehand, lock everyone in place, grant that shield, sort of stop a team from really encroaching any further. Everyone else, though, they're pretty much all in. I mean, Vladimir, typically, when he looks for a team fight, he's all in. Viego, same deal. Volibear, same. Tristana needs to get those kills as well. Everything comes off the back of kill resets. Whereas on the flip side of things, Nocturne, again, doesn't have a way to get out once he does use that prono. Zed has the ability to jump in and use the shadows to get away, is a slippery champion, but it's just still not the same effect as the other champions when they jump in into and obviously wanting to start and continue and keep a team fight going.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried because the compositions, right, feel the same. It feels like De La Salle have got a reset style where they can go in, have no real issues. In Melbourne High School, high damage, all AD, and very skirmishy, with lacking some crowd control. So we'll see how game number 2 goes down. Will it be a repeat of history, or will game number 2 differ than game number 1? And right before we dive in, guys, there is an update from the other semi-finals match, which is, of course, Melbourne High School facing off against St. Mary's. Melbourne High School did claim the first game in that best-of-3 series for themselves, as game number 2 will be playing out side by side. But, guys, on that note, don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a minute. Game number 2 here of the Victorian semi-finals between De La Salle and Melbourne High School. And we're hitting the rip for game number 2 between Melbourne High School and De La Salle. Now, unlike game number 1, where we saw a hell of a level 1 fight and engagement, it is going to be a little bit different. De La Salle, while they grouped up, they will not be doing anything cheeky, and it looks like we'll just get a standard level 1 with no one dying this time.
Yep, it's going to be the tried, tested, and true line of scrimmage. And again, once that first game is done and someone is a bit on the losing foot, someone's got the advantage, typically you want to keep the advantage. Typically, you don't want to give anything else away. So it makes sense that they've gone from being a little bit more high risk to being a bit more conservative for both of these teams because, again, that first win going one way or the other does sort of change up the mentality. And as you can see here, that's completely changed up the start for these teams.
Yeah, slower start, and I think that will favor Melbourne High School. Admittedly, they did come out worse for wear based on the level 1 last game. So we'll see if that makes any difference coming through here, as both junglers will be starting things off on the bottom half of the map here. Double Jinx giving the leash. It should be nice and healthy double leash there. And now I am very curious to see, well, what do the two junglers do, right? Because you would kind of assume Phoenix would go for a super heavy clear, rush that level 6, and power farm their way through it. But is there a possibility of like a cheeky gank from Phoenix coming in when you look at the lane allocations here?
Honestly, I prefer Nocturne to actually just go look for the other jungler rather than look for a gank. Basically limiting the jungler's position, obviously stealing with their resources is another way to stop the ganks and put pressure on the rest of the map. And Nocturne's one of the champions that really has that level 1 advantage early. Can basically run through the jungle with relatively good sustain, get that advantage, and then look to invade afterwards without really fearing any reprise from the other jungler. It all comes down to, of course, the lane states. And looking at it here, Karakrupt is not on the best scenario for it, and same for Demon Slayer. So that does mean that Phoenix won't be able to take advantage of the ability to do that.
Speaking of these junglers, we talk a lot about Phoenix. Look what Yo did. Did blue buff into Wolves, into Gromp, into an immediate 3-3-minute bot lane attempt. Now, obviously didn't work, but I love that proactivity out of a jungler there. So, a nice attempt from the jungler of De La Salle, and now they're both just, hang out on the top half of the map for a little bit here, and this could result in a Scuttle Crab skirmish between these two teams here, but it has been sorted out by Daiki, and I don't feel like Melbourne High School will get contested for this objective.
Now, I'm pretty sure Phoenix just being that little bit ahead of the curve there. As you can see, didn't look for an early gank, means that he's going to be in position for that, so we'll be picking up that Scuttle instead and having a little bit of a tempo advantage. But Yosuke's doing a little bit different before. He was very harm-heavy beforehand. Now he's being more versatile with the champion and looking for ganks. And won't be able to find anything in this top lane at least, but I think that you can tell they're trying to get it now. But again, Phoenix is just going to walk it out and say, you know what? You snooze, you lose. I was here first. And this also becomes a bit of a problem for Yosuke because now he needs to run through, give away his position to Demon Slayer, and everyone's going to realize that they're basically hightailing to this next Scuttle Crab.
Yeah, it could actually result in a 2v2 there, as we're seeing top lane Kara getting whacked around, and yeah, the two mid laners sort of being forced to dance to the tune of their junglers because neither want to give up the Scuttle Crab. But the first people to step up will in fact be 200 Years and Rage from that bottom lane. So that will basically secure the Scuttle Crab over to the side of De La Salle as Yo and Phoenix, they're skirmishing, but both of them know what's happened here. I think you're just forced to back away, keep your farming up, because neither of them really have a gankable lane in this situation.
Yeah, all of it also comes down to the lane states. As you can see, they were both just fighting over these jungle resources. Because De La Salle has the edge in this plot lane, and purely because of the extra pushing power coming through from Tristana or 200 Years, that does mean that they were able to secure that Scuttle control. And this is big for Yosuke, because if Phoenixy managed to pick up that Scuttle Crab, things take a real bad turn for Yosuke at this point. He has to basically look for resources elsewhere, whereas Phoenix is going to be slingshotting towards level 6, and that means that those easy ganks that Phoenix is able to pull off to will happen much quicker, whereas Yosuke's just been left in the dirt, left behind.
Yeah, and I feel like in order to avoid being left behind, the Dragon needs to be looked at here, and we did actually just see the Nocturne Smite get pinged out, so I feel like both teams are aware that, hey, we can look for Dragon. The wave is actually being shoved in by Lucina and Dr. Dugong, but the problem is they have no jungler. So they might just have to reset. And also the vision control, of course, we did see the Scuttle Crab. It does tell De La Salle everything that's going on the bottom half of the map for now.
And it's really interesting to see how teams actually use the lane states now to make decisions around the map. Like, typically now this would be a great opportunity for De La Salle to actually look for the Dragon directly afterwards. They know Phoenix is back. They know he's actually gone towards the top side of the map. Also with the bottom side backing here as well, they've managed to push it out. And look at that, De La Salle realizing this is looking for that Dragon now, purely just based on the fact that, hey, bot lane's backed away. We know Phoenix has gone towards the top side of the map. This is an easy Dragon for De La Salle.
Really good map movements from De La Salle to read it. As you said, knew the objective was available, said, well, we might as well take it. Demon Slayer is level 6, and I worry he might see that as an opportunity to engage. But now level 6 hit on Xanad should stabilize the middle lane. And a very passive game compared to what we had last time. And so although I say that, Phoenixy coming in, and Daige does commit to going forwards here, does not able to run away, knows they can't, tries to turn this around onto Kara, but Kara has the flash, but still gets the first blood coming through in the 2v1. The shield will come out on the back end of it as well. Phoenixy gets out in one piece. Finally, Demon Slayer is able to avenge his top laner, but that is not an ideal set of circumstances for that to play out.
No, Melbourne High Melbourne High really lost out in that scenario. Not only was that a 2-for-1 trade, in the scenario actually a 3-for-1 trade. Yosuke though might give it back.
Yeah, Deathmark coming down there, the flash, but the shadows forwards. Goodbye, my friend. Bit of a slim say that TB coming through, Paranoia coming in over the wall as well. The fleeing for this Vladimir will use the second pool to get out in one piece. Both top laners TP to join the fight. As we've seen, it does get an early cleanse there. The bomb will not be enough to get the kill. A lot of trading, but Dr. Dugong is able to buy some room and does give them a little bit of reprieve down there.
Yeah, really nice exhaust out of Dr. Dugong meant that explosion didn't do as much damage as was intended. Especially if that last shot came from 200 years, I imagine he would have been jumping directly again, basically to Goomba Stomp Lucina off that advantage. But of course, wasn't able to find that last auto attack, which means it wasn't able to explode, wasn't able to give the reset, and things just sort of settled down a little bit in the spot side of the map. But we still need to talk about what happened top and everything went into play there. Yosuke really made a critical error there because there was a massive advantage for Daiki off the back of what happened before, and that meant that the TP, which put Zenit in a bad position, that was forced out by Daiki just to sort of save that scenario, really was off the back of Yosuke just not really respecting where the rest of the map was at that point in time. And Ezekiel, Melbourne High are able to get something back, but Daiki's having a really good game here this time around Karaka, but might have overstepped the welcome there just that little bit.
A little bit. It's still a really rough matchup for Kara to play properly, because the Volibear can just sort of trade with you whenever he's feeling like it, and should be able to dodge out of your charged up Q. So, you're stuck in a situation where you're going to get abused all game, but again, it's a Scion, right? You'll be fine as long as you survive. Yes, you're falling 20 CS behind, but it shouldn't be the end of the world up in that top lane. As I'm actually getting my eyes on the bottom lane a little bit here. We are seeing something as Population comes out, catches out both members. Rage is in a lot of trouble, gets that beast. As Demon Slayer might in fact get nuked there. The Deathmark gets denied because of the Vladimir, and the Hemo Plague picks up a solo kill in the middle lane. Vengeance for game number 1.
Yeah, as soon as Zanid's able to get to that level 6, things just take a complete turn as well. Daiki using that shield very effectively against Karaka just to continue whittling away from him. But yeah, I mean, this is huge. He's going for it.
There it is. Daiki at ultimate will likely die for this one and make it a 1-4. It's a 2-man stun. Oh, that's beautiful, Rage. But the Cannon coming through here. Will it be enough to win this fight? The answer is, well, yes. Phoenix T has the damage output with the Iron Whip. Slaps them down. Lucina lost their life, but 2 kills claimed by the jungler of Melbourne High School.
Yeah, just so much happening around the map at the moment. A lot of these teams trying to edge out little advantages where they can, but still not respecting all of the different abilities. Daiki understanding that was probably the best opportunity to go for a 1-for-1 trade, even if Karaka was able to get that kill back. Of course, that meant that most of the minions would have died, and he would have had a push coming back towards him. So that was a massive advantage there. Salle on the bottom side of the map, 200 years in Rage Rider probably thought, you know what, we haven't seen Phoenix here for a while. He's probably made his move towards that top side of the map again. That's where he should be, but wasn't respecting that he could be still hanging around, was able to return the kill in the favor for it. And this is one hell of a good competitive game.
Yeah, it's looking so good between these two teams. Hell, the gold is dead even, and now we might see yet another fight. We do know Demon Slayer is roaming up for this one, so they could look for it if Daiki overstays their welcome, but very smartly chooses not to try and take that fight. And Demon Slayer, these 2 roams that have been coming out, while I love to see assassins roaming, look at the CS. It's starting to become a serious problem here, as Zenit sitting on 93 CS, the most out of anyone in this game, as Lucina is feeling the pain of dealing with a Tristana.
Yeah, absolutely. But all that CS advantage was actually brought up purely because of the solo kill that Zenit was able to pull out against Demon Slayer before. There was a massive build-up of minions, and Zenit jumped on it there. Demon Slayer still got some decent damage. He's looking at this opportunity now.
Oh, with that early segment pull, you could easily look for a Deathmark attack here. Dragon has spawned though, Mentions, and I feel like Demon Slayer saving that for the objective contest is a good decision. Both top laners will not be able to join the fight courtesy of a lack of teleports, but the Dragon was aggroed. But I wonder, of either of these teams really feeling confident to go for this objective? So far, it doesn't look it.
Yeah, it's really hard to judge who's going to be the person that comes out on top this time around. As you can see there, Xanad still had to push out his lane before he could go for it, but both these teams realizing, hey, this is actually still on the tip of the edge. Anything could happen if we do make the wrong move here, and going for that dragon without any real pressure elsewhere is going to make it sad. You can see DLSL find a way to make that pressure happen, dropping down that Rift Tail. That allows them to open up this dragon, and then now they're going to go for it, but let's see how quick Melbourne High School can actually return back to this.
Lucina, I know it wasn't shown on screen, but Lucina got slapped by the Rift Herald, and that's why they basically have no HP there. So there's going to be no contest, a really good use of the Rift Herald, not just to get plates, but also to make room, force Melbourne High School to do something that they didn't want to do, in this case, force Lucina to go bot lane and catch a crashing wave. When Lucina's like, okay, your AD carry now isn't allowed to join in the fight, free dragon for us, you can't contest this. Now sitting on 2 dragons, with the Cloud Soul lurking further in the distance.
And what's what I love about seeing the different styles from these teams. Both of them have very unique macro plays in terms of it. Melbourne High love to do these quick rotations around, look for opportunities on the side here. Phoenix is just jumping onto this. Cassidy might have it.
Oh, that's disgusting! Will be able to turn it around though. The Hemo Plague is a ridiculous damage output, but now Yo is in trouble. Deathmark is down. Is the Shadow available for the hunt down there? It doesn't look it. And Demon Slayer is forced to abandon the Prowl there, but a 1-for-1 trade. But Xanad, over-aggressive, not willing to respect the fear tether that comes out of Phoenix.
Yeah, probably didn't expect that as well, and that's typically why there's such a big advantage as well for the Nocturnes, is that Fear Tether does so much work when it comes to keeping someone under control while they just basically wail on them. The other thing there you can see, they tried to jump onto the 200 years because they realized Rage Rider moved up before, so very wise and intelligent there to try and make something happen, but of course 200 years was wisely moving away, making sure that it wasn't going to be caught out at any point. Overall though, it's still, of course, it being shutdown gold is not good for Xanad, but it being a 2-for-1 and 1-for-1 trade is still good, and Daiki really likes to force it here, but Kara's playing so carefully now.
Yeah, Kara has to though. We saw Kara, like, when Kara is fighting, it's when the turret's involved, and that's what you have to do in this matchup here. Especially with the Divine Sunderer being secured first. In this matchup, Xanad is very lost. Paranoia is available, which means the engagement will come through. No segueing pool, but there is the Rocket Belt, and of course the dash to get to safety. The unfortunately missed there, as Dugong is in a lot of trouble there. Now Zed goes in for Xanad. Xanad should die. One more auto will get him. No, not able to get the Deathmark damage output available. Xanad getting out by the skin of their teeth. That is a smooth criminal.
Oh, everyone's just playing so well across the board. They're basically shoring up their weaknesses every opportunity they can get. Demon Slayer, it's going the long way around. Xanad, Demon Slayer, here we go. Oh, he's going to go for the execute.
Does he get it in time? Yes, they do. No issues there. Really good from Demon Slayer to get the execute. And now...
Look at the experience, though. Oh, 200 years.
Oh, my lord, 200 years is just going for it. One more hit. Oh, the Gale Force! That's disgusting. I love it.
200 years really understanding that the advantage there is for this Tristana there is using every opportunity to jump to it. Like, I like to see that sort of, all right, what's the playstyle here? When you jump onto me, I drop the chompers and walk away. And 200 years just realized there's going to be a break-even point. There's going to be a spot at that point where those chompers and that specific sort of trade back and forth of skills wasn't going to matter. And as soon as 200 years reached that break point, took that advantage and killed Lucina. So really love the understanding from 200 years and the champion pool that he's brought to the table.
Yeah, and I love watching an aggressive Tristana play. A lot of AD carries will, play something like a Caitlyn. In this case, we're seeing Lucina on the Jinx, playing very defensive. And in most cases, yeah, you have to. But as a Tristana, you have to be willing to jump in there. You have to be willing to throw yourself into the fight and try and make something work. And in this case, 200 years seems to almost flourish when they're allowed to play this aggressive. We saw it on the Samira, we're seeing it on the Tristana this game, and now we might see it again. Demon Slayer, though, I'm not so sure that there's a bit of a difference, right, between jumping in on a Mythicless Jinx and jumping in on a Zed, who, if you overplay, is going to look at you and decide that you're not allowed to live anymore.
Really cancel your subscription on live on that one, huh?
Oh, I wasn't gonna say that. Yeah, I was building up to the joke that when there's a solo, when Demon Slayer solo kills 200 years,
Yep.
then I was gonna drop that one. But I mean, if you want to steal my thunder, mate.
I wasn't stealing your thunder. I was actually sitting up for it because you could have. Remember what I told you? You could have gone, hey, you know what? It's not a subscription. It's a ban. All right.
I mean, yeah, but I've got to wait for the kill to come through before I'm allowed to say that one.
Fair enough. All good on that sense. I'm sorry to steal your thunder. Daiki gets caught there.
Daiki gets banned from using the blast plant. Nailed it.
There we go.
Coming through as the Rift Herald was secured during this process and immediately dropped in the middle lane to get a little bit of pressure. Dragon is 10 seconds away, and I think that's where we're going to see the fight. But so far it's a skirmish, but Melbourne High School are 1,000 gold down because we talked about their skirmish style. We talked about how they want to try and get picks and try and get a little bit of it here and there. They haven't had it. They really haven't had that coming in this game. And now Dugong is just getting caught out there at less than half health. And the Dragon hasn't even been started up.
You can really see the DSL's using that as well. The TP, here we go.
That's an aggressive teleport play from Daiki, forcing Melbourne High School back. And now Dragon started up. I feel like a desperation play is coming in.
Well, it's just too much happening here. Who's going to look for the engage here? He's going to be Phoenix. He's going to be Rage Rider goes in first.
Phoenix has been caught out, though. They can get this Nocturne. There's no chance of a steal. Goodbye. And now Melbourne High School, without their jungler, are forced to abandon ship. But now running for the hills, they're slamming into the wall is Kara, using that unstoppable onslaught. And Decimate not connecting. Everyone is fleeing. But the discipline from Melbourne High School. Yes, they lost their jungler in perhaps we can call it a less than ideal set of circumstances, but they didn't allow themselves to get consumed with bloodlust and go in for a fight that they clearly knew they weren't going to win.
But again, this was one of those scenarios where favor fortunes the bold. The team that engages first and has the better positioning is the one that's going to come out on top, and that's going to be DLSL every single time so far. Not only are now 3 Dragons up, but they're now beginning to edge out that gold lead. It's just finally hit the point where it's no longer, is it going to be Melbourne High? Is DLSL? It's clearly DLSL in this scenario. And now that they're well and truly in the driver's seat, and I look at this as it plays out, I'm really worried for Melbourne High. I feel when it does get to that late game stage, DLSL not only have an edge in the terms of them having their champion picker selection, because of one, they've got a mage instead of an assassin. But the other thing as well, now that they're already ahead as well, just further solidifies them getting the win. Melbourne High School really need to stop the bleeding now. The hemorrhaging needs to stop at this point here and now. And it needs to be them looking to force a mistake out of DLSL by perhaps positioning around this, I imagine perhaps positioning around Baron, seeing if they can steal it away nice and early. And then from there, or if they are trying to engage onto it, laying down that trap. But DLSL are just so good. They're so diligent with their warding. And that's why they always have that better position. You can see they've already warded up that Baron. I understand that's possibly the place that they're going to lose into this as well. And they're just making sure that they have all the information at all points in time.
Exactly. It's saying, okay, if you want to, for these vision controls, I should say, it's not like DLSL is saying, okay, we're going for this objective, and that's what this vision is for. This vision is to create a sense of paranoia for Melbourne High School. If Melbourne High School don't know what's going on, if Melbourne High School can't see the fact that, they know Baron is spawning in 10 seconds, they don't know if DLSL's starting it. They don't know if DLSL's setting an ambush. They don't know if DLSL is on the other side of the map not caring about the objective because they cannot see what is going on. And unfortunately, a lack of vision cripples any level of good mechanics. You can have great mechanics, but if you're walking headfirst into danger and don't see it coming, I'm sorry, those mechanics aren't saving you. Even with the Nocturne on your team, you'll be charging into what is basically a paranoia through just sheer vision control. What are you?
When you said paranoia initially, was that like an unintentional pun and then realized?
No, that was fully intentional. I expect some cringe from the Twitch chat there. It's like, oh my lord, Rage is feeling confident there with a multi-man solar flare where the fight is taking its sweet time. Rage taking down low, paranoia coming through. Now they're nervous. They see what they can't, and they're finally dived onto the backline there. 200 years is locked down, but gets out in one piece. Phoenix will finally fall victim. Lucina, 3 hitting for this entire fight. It's finally reinforcements arrive of the Demon Slayer. 200 years gets cut down, but will it be enough? Yo is feeling it for this fight here. Finally going through. Lucina is still alive, is still hitting Daiki, and has still not killed them as they will finally fall victim themselves. This Jinx unable to play League of Legends, and the only person to get it alive is the tank.
And I mean, looking at everything that happened there, you'd think, oh, Melbourne High School, they were looking so good at that initial fight. But again, Salle, they're the ones that pull the trigger first. They're the ones that have the better positioning off of it. And because they were the ones that are doing that initial engage, they've also got the advantage of the goal beforehand. As soon as that fight plays out and it gets elongated, it does mean that Salle came out on top. And they're just continuing to push that lead a little bit further. Each time they're getting further out of reach from Melbourne High School. And I reckon there's going to be hitting a point very soon where Salle is going to be able to basically be outside of that break-even point. Melbourne High won't be able to catch up, and they're just going to be able to ride out to the late game.
Yeah, and we are reaching that point, Mendrix, and it comes not through necessarily the positioning, as we're seeing Zenit getting looked at, the solar flare, and an early Sanguine Pool will get Zenit out that in the issue. But I really, really want to talk about the gold for the 40 seconds we have before our next imminent fight. Specifically, the 80 carries. There is a massive gold differential between these two champions, and you can see it in the itemization. Straight up, half an item. And in this case, it's a fully completed Phantom Dancer for 200 years.
A lot of this is coming off of it. Rage Rider doesn't have the ultimate here either, so that might play a bit of a thing coming to it, but all of it now does come to the positioning of this. If 200 years is allowed to free hit, because 200 years was taken out relatively early in the last team fight, we could have seen a completely different scenario there. Daiki, he's able to find a carry crap, not really the tankiest member, but still just holding position in line, holding position in the line. And once again, Salle, they have the position advantage, they have the edge. Melbourne High School need to be perfect with this engage.
Oh my lord, Zenit goes in, buys the entire team. They are so split up from Melbourne High School, but no one has died yet. And now it looks like it might be an overchase from Salle. They're forced to back away. That could have been so good as Paranoia comes through, spinning Beyblade, let it rip, but he gets punted out immediately. Goodbye. Solar Flare has come back up, but they are so low from the side of Salle. Do they have to help us to make this work? Lucina is alive. Lucina's excited. This could be Melbourne High School's turnaround fight, but Lucina's getting jumped on. They can't keep the Jinx alive. The Jinx goes down. Melbourne High School, that could have been their sign of life, but they did not have the damage output. They did not have their team with them. Tower will eventually burn down if Zenit is so inclined to do so. Looks like they will get the kill. An ace coming through, and Salle could look to break the inhibitor line at 24 minutes.
And I'm just looking at it there, I'm just saying, wow, that was incredible in the team fight there. But the big thing was that Salle were able to still hit the trigger first. They were just too bruised from that Vladimir ultimate previously to force that re-engage to make it work for them. You could tell, it's like, all right, do we go anyway? He doesn't have the human play. Can we make it work this time around? In the end, it is going to be a no. And seriously, Zen is just telling everyone out there right now, who needs CC to engage? You just drop a ridiculous amount of damage, and that's all you need. That was ridiculous from Zenit to realize that scenario, jump in, and create the advantage for his team.
Yeah, the flank from the Vladimir. That's always what you want to see. If Vladimir can get a good flank off, dive into the backline. We saw what happened there. It threw Melbourne High School completely for a tizzy. They're forced to run away, disengage. And there was a bit of an overchase from Salle there. Specifically, Daikai really looked like they wanted it. But obviously did disengage. The counter-engage from Phoenix, he looked good, but it's always about he who strikes first. What was that quote you said earlier, Mendrix?
Fortune favors the bold.
Fortune favors the bold. Well, so far, Salle have initiated most of the fights, and I can't think of a fight that they've really struggled. Sure, he is diving onto a Zed buddy. I'm not so sure that's the play, but Daikai makes this an unfair fight as another assassin jumps in. Demon Slayer's like, see ya, buddy. I want to go home. Let me go home, please. It gets cut down as the Pop Blossom buys a lot of room there. Lucina allowed a free hit on the back line of the fight. This could be good. But Lucina's being dived on. The cleanse comes out, but it's just not enough. They will lose their life. Phoenixy realizes they're stuck in the rock and a hard place. You only have one spell shield and too many spells to count. And that will be another devastation for Melbourne High School.
While I don't agree with the person who initiated that particular engage, I still like the result, okay? Everything's worked out for Salle here. They've well and truly opened up the map now. They've won another team fight. It's going to be another Baron underneath their belt as well. And with this, they have a team that can definitely siege as well. They didn't even need to pick up this Baron. So now that they've got the open inhibitor, of course the Dragon is not going to be up for at least another 3 minutes. I feel now what they can do is literally use this Baron power play to rinse out the rest of the inhibitors on the map. Don't look for the heavy finish just yet. Then you can use the advantage that you picked up from this Baron in terms of that map control and those super creeps to grab the dragon, and from there you'll be able to close out the game relatively easily because you have so many different engage options. Hell, it seems 200 years is an engage option now here for DLSL.
They've got themselves a stopwatch, so they should be safer diving into a Z, which, as you said, I don't think that's what we call an ideal engage, even if it technically counts.
You know what? The DLSL is just a results-driven team, okay? Doesn't matter how they got there in the end. As long as the result is what they expected to see, everything's fine.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that one, Mendrick, so we'll continue to be...
Hey, mate, they've got 4 dragons, a Baron, and a 10k gold lead. Look, even if it means they're sacrificing their ADC, I'm down for the way it's working out for them at the moment.
Worked out right now. They will be stealing away the blue buff from Phoenixy, who's like, please, I don't have a lot. Let me take this. But does not look the case as we're seeing the siege start on the bottom half of the map here. And I feel like we have time to talk about the gold a little bit. Yes, it's 10,000 gold effectively, and it's where that gold is, which is also part of the problem. Between the middle three, which is of course the jungle, the mid laner, and of course the AD carry, about a 2,000 gold, 2 to 3,000 gold differential across the board. That is devastation coming through when you look at it. As Melbourne High looking for something there. The paranoia comes through as is the on top of the onslaught. Will they be able to get access to it? A beautiful buster shot. That could be everything they need. 200 years is just free hitting in the backline. Lucina isn't able to join the fight. Demon Slayer isn't able to join the fight. Melbourne High School couldn't commit to it. Their backline wasn't allowed to join the fight, and now their backline realizes, crap, this is not where we want to be, buddy. Run for the hills, but the hills are alive with the sound of slaughter of the Melbourne High School members. Dugong trying to buy a little bit of space, but I'm not sure it matters. Lucina hiding under the turrets, but Melbourne High School, they look desynced. They look lost. It looks like they're not reading from the same book right now, Mendrix.
Yeah, they're looking too much at the result that they want and not really reading through what would happen if they were going to get Zenit.
Yeah, Zenit, goodbye Dugong and goodbye Lucina. That is disgusting of 200 years stealing away one of those kills. But that will be the Nexus falling in after a hell of a fend off. Melbourne High School, it didn't look bad, but unfortunately it was not good enough to fend off De La Salle from claiming victory in this second game of our best of 3 series.
And the way that it ended there, everything that happened for DLSL was planned. You could tell Zenit was literally looking to be the bait. I feel Zenit felt he shouldn't have actually come out alive in that scenario. To be honest, he literally was down to 1% and then managed to get healed up at the last second. So I honestly thought that he was going to be a dead Vladimir, but managed to come out on top still. But all of it was planned. You could tell he was coming, making himself a little bit lower, use the pull, and that was allowing Melbourne to go, you know what, we can jump on this Vladimir now. We can make this fight happen. But he had the Zhonya's ready and waiting. When Melbourne High jumped in, when they were greeted with a golden statue, they were unable to really recoup and then find a new target directly afterwards. And 200 years was just sitting there, just blowing away directly after, just shot after shot that could possibly happen. That was really well planned out, as well with the Rage Rider re-engaging, Daiki immediately teleporting in as well. And Yoshiki was actually just shoving out that mid lane and then making their way in. So as soon as that fight engaged, Yoshiki was just around the corner as well. So DLSL really planned out how that last fight was going to go through. Melbourne High basically just going straight for the cookie jar, not realizing that there was going to be a mousetrap in there.
Yeah, and it's really rough from the side of Melbourne High School. Points of it looked really, really good, Mendrix. Part of it looked like they were having good signs of life, but unfortunately they just got too battered up, too pushed down, and not able to go toe-for-toe against their opponents there of De La Salle, who of course will come out as the victors of this semi-finals best of 3 series, Mendrix, which means they will be advancing to the Victorian State Grand Finals. And hopefully we will soon find out who their opponent is. Of course, the other best of 3 series between St. Mary's College and Melbourne High School is playing out off stream. The information that we do know currently was that Melbourne High School did win the first game of that best of 3 series. And hopefully we will find out about the second, but we do have to focus on, this current series, Mendrix, and specifically, we have to take a look at who is going to get the Optus and Torrens University MVP of the series. Not just the games, but the series as a whole. Now, I know who I think should be getting it in the Medrix, and I wanted to give you the question: do you necessarily disagree with who I'm going for?
You know what? I want to see what you decide who it is, and then I'm gonna let you know directly afterwards if I agree with it. So let me hear what you've got. Who did you give it to?
The MVP is going to the mid laner of De La Salle on Zenith for in this game, a astronomical performance on the Vladimir. And of course, in the previous game, the Kassadin gameplay with the Frozen Heart, which I still think is a disgusting build, but it did its job, and it did its job damn well.
It all comes down to the fact that not only was it a fantastic performance being shown in the second game, where Zenith was really able to show off that mechanical play, we then got to see the meta style from Zenith in the previous game, understanding, hey, I know the matchup into the Zed. Not only am I going to go fleet footwork, I'm going to go the tank build. That means I'm going to be able to survive. I'm going to be able to scale up well into the game. Yeah, he had a little bit rough early, but that's expected against the Zed. And that does mean that in the end that we got to see not only just intelligent play from Zenith, but also flashy. And you could just really see why directly from that point, why Zenith was the MVP.
Yeah, so obviously Zenith will be getting that. And of course, we look forward to seeing what Zenith and the rest of De La Salle are able to pull off in the grand final for the Victorian state. I am just quickly checking. It does not look like we have had an update on the second game, the other semi-final series. We will quickly do one final dive to see if that game has ended. But Medrix, with De La Salle moving on to the next round, I suppose you could say, the grand finals for the Victorian state, that is going to be it from us here at Meta HSE.
Yeah, I mean, look, I had a great time watching it. Even though there was a 2-0 in the end, it was still extremely competitive. And Melbourne High, you guys put up an amazing fight. It was a valiant effort. Still, congratulations to De La Salle, but I love what you guys put on today.
It was quite impressive, and they fought well, but unfortunately were not able to stem the flow of De La Salle's aggression. But on that note, guys, we want to thank everybody for joining us over the course of this best of 3 series. Of course, our producers, our admins, and of course, Mendrix yourself. Thank you for joining me for the past 2-something hours. I don't know. Yeah, 2 hours and 5 minutes according to Twitch. Of course, our viewers, thank you guys all for watching. Keep your eyes peeled. There is still plenty of more Meta HSE, not just League of Legends. There is Rocket League and I believe NBA 2K lurking around for the state finals. And of course, the grand finals for League of Legends across the states will be soon coming. So on that note, guys, take care of yourselves out there, and we'll see you later.